Tim said it was disgusting that I like men, and that I should never think of him that way. But every single girlfriend he's ever had looks about 50% like me. I never said anything about it. At the birthday dinner, Grandpa George asked me if my feelings for his grandson were serious. After a moment of thought, I nodded. The old man let out a sigh. In that case, he said, I approve of you and Richard. Tim shot up from his seat, his eyes wide with disbelief as he shouted, him and who? My brother. At the party, Tim brought his new girlfriend. The girl was tall and slender with fair skin, and if you looked closely, you could see a small beauty mark on the tip of her nose, in the exact same spot as mine. Like all of Tim's previous girlfriends, she resembled me in certain ways. And this was the 15th one. Under the colorful lights, Tim wrapped his arm around the girl's waist and announced with a laugh, "This is Nancy. Isn't she gorgeous? Took me a whole month to win her over. From now on, you all better call her sis-in-law, you hear me?" The crowd erupted in laughter and teasing. I sat in a corner, propping my head up with one hand and swirling the glass in my other. A mutual friend, Danny, walked over and clapped me on the shoulder. "Alex, you don't be too upset." I looked up and pointed a finger at myself. "Me? Yeah, don't act tough. We can all see that Tim isn't completely uninterested in you. Look, the one he found this time looks just like you again. He's just not there yet mentally, he hasn't accepted it. Just wait a little longer. Give him some more time. He'll come around." I glanced over at the man sitting in the shadows on the other side, let out an absurd little laugh, and began to explain for what felt like the 1000th time. "Honestly, whatever Tim does has nothing to do with me. It really doesn't." Danny patted my shoulder again, nodding knowingly. I get it. A man's pride. Anyway, just don't take it to heart." With that, he got up and walked away. Great, another failed explanation. I was used to it. I took a sip of whiskey. A moment later, a figure appeared beside me. I glanced over, my eyes flicking to the drink in the man's hand, and I clicked my tongue in annoyance. "Didn't I tell you to drink less? If you have an attack, I'm not taking care of you." I lightly kicked his shin with the tip of my shoe, snatched the low-alcohol drink from his hand, and slowly sipped from the spot where his lips had been. Richard let out a muffled laugh, rubbing the back of his hand against my thigh and lowering his voice. "You wouldn't have the heart to ignore me. This is kind of boring. Should we head back?" Suddenly, all the lights went out, plunging the room into darkness. In the instant before the birthday candles were lit, Richard leaned in and gently brushed his lips against mine. The cake was rolled out in front of Tim. Everyone crowded around him, singing happy birthday. Only Richard and I remained in our corner. I nodded, agreeing to leave in a bit. After the song ended and a round of enthusiastic applause, the sudden glare of the lights made me blink. All at once, several people started shouting my name. Before I knew it, Danny was grabbing my arm and pulling me into the center of the crowd. Across from me stood Tim and his girlfriend. Tim smiled at me. "Alex, you were gone just now. You haven't wished me a happy birthday yet." The girl looked at me for a moment, then glanced at Tim, her expression a little odd. Danny was winking and twitching his mouth at me, probably trying to tell me to seize the opportunity. I was speechless for a second, then put on my usual smile and pulled a small, delicate gift box from my pocket. "Happy birthday, Tim." My gift to him was a star-shaped brooch. Tim took it, and his eyes lit up as he opened it. A moment later, as if remembering something, he looked up and said, "Thanks, this brooch is beautiful, but I think it would suit Nancy better. You don't mind if I give it to her, do you?" The room fell into a strangely awkward silence. I nodded. "Of course not. It's your gift now, you can do whatever you want with it." Hearing this, Tim immediately pinned the brooch onto the girl's dress and gave her a passionate kiss in front of everyone. The energy in the room returned as everyone clapped and cheered loudly. I took the chance to slip away from the crowd and back to my corner, meeting a pair of intense eyes. "Let's go. We're going home." The moment we got home, Richard pressed me against the wall and started kissing me. He pulled my shirt out, his large, warm palms sliding up my back. I let him kiss me for a bit before hugging him back with a laugh. "What's all this about? The 6'3" man rested his head on my shoulder, pouting. I'm jealous. You used to spoil Tim too much. All these clueless people think you're in love with him. And even though that idiot won't admit it himself, anyone with eyes can see he's actually into you. And you still gave him a present. I'm not happy. I need to be compensated. I grabbed the hand that was creeping toward my waist and gave it a firm squeeze. Stop being a baby. He invited me to his birthday party. It would have been rude not to bring a gift. Besides, what's there to be jealous about? You're the one who picked out the gift, weren't you? A certain someone had adamantly forbidden me from picking out a gift myself, insisting he choose what I gave to his little brother. Richard slid his hand back under my shirt. I'm still not happy. Everyone keeps misunderstanding that my partner is in love with someone else. His hand roamed my back, threatening to wander lower. I reasonably suspected he was just using this as an excuse to get handsy. I've tried to explain it to them. It's your fault for also having Blake as your last name. That was the root of the whole misunderstanding. Richard kissed the side of my neck. Why don't we just go public? I'll figure out a way to get Grandpa to agree. But it was never that simple. Grandpa George was a stubborn man. Richard was the heir he had personally groomed for the company, and he had placed immense hopes on him. The Blake family allowed the younger grandson to be a playboy who didn't take things seriously because the older grandson held up the sky for them. Coming out would undoubtedly cause a massive storm. And right now, Richard still needed his grandfather's support. His lips brushed against my skin. If it comes down to it, I'll be the playboy, and we can let Tim be the CEO of the company. I let out a soft laugh. What do you have against your own company? Setting aside whether Grandpa George would even agree, if Tim took over, the company would probably go bankrupt in no time. I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him back. Don't rush. We'll take our time. Ding. A message came through on my phone. It was from Tim. How come you left? Are you home? I only had time for a quick glance before the screen was pushed down and turned off. A barrage of kisses rained down on me, and I no longer had the capacity to think about replying. I'm a year older than Tim. Grandpa George did my family a huge favor once, so at my parents' urging, I always took extra care of Tim. Tim was spoiled and loved to stir up trouble, and I was often the one who cleaned up his messes. He relied on me, too. Sometimes, when he had a fever in the middle of the night, he'd call me to go with him to the hospital. Over time, rumors somehow started to spread. A year and a half ago, during a game of Truth or Dare, someone asked if I was into guys. I didn't lie and admitted it freely. Many people's eyes lit up with excitement, their gazes shifting back and forth between me and Tim. Tim's expression stiffened slightly. Then someone else asked if the person I liked had the last name Blake. I still nodded. Ha ha ha. I knew it. I was right, wasn't I? Alex is in love with she. Tim suddenly cut him off. You like men? His brows were furrowed, his face dark, and his voice laced with aversion and disgust. How can you be so disgusting? The room fell silent. I just smiled, unfazed. Eventually, someone broke the awkward silence with a forced laugh, and the topic was dropped. Later that night, Tim found me again and said he wasn't into guys, telling me not to have any filthy thoughts about him so we could still be friends. I told him in a serious tone that he was overthinking things while I did like men. I had zero interest in him. He snorted. You'd better not. After that, Tim started diligently finding girlfriends, always making a big show of introducing them. But perplexingly, every single one of them bore some resemblance to me, and the relationships never lasted long. He was also keen on flirting with and kissing these girls right in front of me. From my perspective, it felt more like a performance than genuine affection. Although I couldn't understand his behavior, I never said much about it. But some people would come up to me and say, you still have a chance. Subconsciously, Tim likes you. Just hang in there, and you'll see the light. I denied it a dozen times. I denied it for a year and a half. I was just short of swearing on my life. No one believed me. It was so frustrating. I did like a man with the last name Blake, that was true. But the one I liked was his older brother. At 10 o'clock at night, the sudden ringing of my phone pulled me back from my daze. Richard placed the phone in my hand. Want to get that? It's Tim. This man sometimes had a twisted sense of humor. I answered the call. Alex, I need a favor, quick. Riverside Hotel, room 2305. Can you bring me a box of ultra-thins? Doesn't the hotel have… My voice broke on the last word. I quickly shut my mouth and glared at the man on top of me. Alex? Richard chuckled, leaning down to peck me twice before taking the phone. Hey, little bro. Just get a delivery service. Alex isn't really available right now. I bit down on the side of my hand to keep from making any more noise. Richard's eyes gleamed, his voice steady. No, don't jump to conclusions. Alex just twisted his ankle. It hurts for him to walk. Me? I saw he'd had a bit too much to drink, so I gave him a ride home and stayed for a bit. Of course, I'll take good care of him. You go on and do your thing. I was mystified. How on earth could this man say such a long sentence with a completely steady breath? It was a gift. After hanging up, Richard leaned down and nibbled on my ear. We're almost out at home, too. How about next time I call Tim and have him deliver some for us? His suggestion was so outrageous that I just tilted my head and sealed his mouth with mine. The next morning, I was woken up by the doorbell and Richard's movements. I rolled over in his arms and pushed his wandering hand off my leg. Someone's at the door for you. Go get it. Richard held me tight and gave me a kiss. Who could it be this early? Probably a package delivery. They'll leave in a minute. For the second time, I pried his hand off me, repositioning it properly around my waist, my voice groggy. You're not worried it's your grandpa? That'd be great, actually. Richard suddenly pulled me into his arms and launched a vicious tickle attack. He can finally meet his grandson-in-law. I couldn't take the tickling anymore and laughingly kicked him away. Stop messing around. The bell keeps ringing. Go see who it is. This didn't feel like a delivery. Someone was really looking for him. Richard pointed at me playfully from a distance, then casually threw on a pair of pants and went out shirtless. After he closed the door, I snuggled back under the covers. A moment later, I heard Tim's voice from outside. Bro, what took you so long? My legs are numb from standing. Whoa, how'd you get those scratch marks? Did you have a girl over? What was Tim doing here? Richard didn't answer directly. What are you doing here so early? Where's your girlfriend? Oh, I just dropped Nancy off at B University. She has an early class. My jacket got dirty last night, and the malls aren't open yet. I figured you live nearby, so I came to borrow some clothes. Sure. There was a rustling sound, which must have been Tim coming inside. By the way, you said Alex twisted his ankle yesterday. How is he? Is it serious? I called him this morning, but he didn't pick up. I fumbled for my phone under the pillow and saw 2 missed calls from an unknown number. Richard chuckled. It's not serious. He's bouncing around just fine. He even scratched me when I was trying to help with the pain. I wanted to strangle him. You've barely ever treated anyone's injuries. You probably don't know how to be gentle. I should probably go check on him when I have time. Tim's voice was getting louder. It was obvious he was walking towards the bedroom. Wait, get clothes from the guest room. The clothes you keep in the guest room are probably all old styles. I don't want them. The next second, the doorknob turned slightly. That goddamn Richard. How could he let him in? What was I supposed to say? Wrap myself in the blanket and cheerfully say good morning? Ask if he wanted to stay for breakfast? As I was contemplating, Richard's lazy voice drifted in. Your sister-in-law had a rough night and is still sleeping. It's not convenient for you to go in. The doorknob instantly snapped back, followed by Tim's astonished voice. You brought someone home? Are you serious about this? TSK, what kind of question is that? I've never not been serious. When I decide on someone, I don't let go. You think I'm like you, switching girlfriends 15 times a year? Tim gave a sheepish laugh and didn't reply. He didn't stay long. After grabbing the clothes, he left quickly. When Richard came in, I was already washed up and fully dressed. The man, still shirtless, pressed me against the closet door with a triumphant, wicked smile on his face. Sweetheart, was that exciting just now? Were you scared and wanted to hide? I gave him a deadpan look and stomped on his foot, making him yelp and hop around. It was fine. If he had actually come in, he would have been the one in shock, not me. I grabbed his waistband and pulled him back, kissing his chin. And then the whole Blake family would know, including your grandpa. My dear, are you ready to face the storm? Richard wrapped his arms around me and swayed me from side to side. I've been ready for a long time. I was just waiting for you to say yes. By the way, Grandpa's 75th birthday dinner is in 3 days. Are you going? Grandpa George had always been very kind to me, so it was only right that I go. I thought for a moment. I have a class scheduled that afternoon. I'll head over as soon as it's done. Richard pecked the tip of my nose. Okay, I'll come to the university to pick you up then. The birthday dinner fell on a Friday, and it was almost 5 by the time my class ended. As I reached the bottom of the academic building, a few students cornered me to ask about key points for the exam. I tapped each of them on the head. You guys never pay attention in class. I already told you the scope and the key points, and you're still asking. Alex? I looked up to see Tim standing a few steps away. I sent the students on their way and nodded at him as a greeting. Just as I was about to leave, he stopped me again. Is your foot better? Why didn't you let me come to your place to see you? You don't have to avoid me like this. Even though I can't return your feelings, we can still be friends, right? Was I not clear enough? Or was he deaf? Did he not understand all the times I said I didn't like him? I took a step back and noticed he was wearing the star brooch I had given him on his shirt. Are you here for something? You probably didn't come all this way just for me, right? Tim faltered. Of course not. I'm here to pick up Nancy for Grandpa's birthday dinner. Before the words were even out of his mouth, a bright, cheerful girl flew into his arms like the wind. Realizing her faux pas, she quickly stood up straight and greeted me. Hello, Professor Alex. I only found out later that you're a professor in the science department. I'm sorry for not greeting you before. I shook my head. You're in the art department, right? It's normal not to know people from other departments. Don't worry about it. Tim took Nancy's hand. We're heading to Grandpa's now. Are you going? Do you want a ride? I quickly refused, saying I would go later. Are you kidding me? I had no desire to watch them have a French kissing session in front of me. He was totally capable of it, and he wouldn't even feel awkward. Tim frowned, looking like he wanted to say something but didn't. He paused for so long that even Nancy looked at him strangely before he finally snapped out of it. All right then, see you tonight. Tim turned around with his arm around the girl, but they ran into Richard after just a few steps. Bro, what are you doing at B University? Richard said, in a voice that was neither too loud nor too soft. I'm here to pick up your sister-in-law. Whoa, Tim was surprised. You're dating a student? I never would have guessed, bro. I didn't know you liked them young. Not exactly. Richard glanced at me with a smile, the corners of his mouth turning up. I'll introduce you tonight. I went to wait under a tree on the side. Tim and Richard talked for a bit, then Tim left with Nancy. Richard walked over, hands in his pockets. The evening sun filtering through the leaves cast dappled light on his face, making for a very pleasing sight. I smiled at him and he raised an eyebrow slightly. Staring at me like that, stunned by my good looks? He took the lecture notes from my hand, and I instinctively straightened the hem of his suit jacket. Yeah, you're very handsome. So handsome I can't see anyone else around. Of course, you should trust your taste in men. We walked side by side towards the campus exit, the setting sun stretching our shadows long behind us. By the time we reached the old Blake family residence, an hour had passed. Grandpa George didn't like extravagant banquets, so even though it was a birthday dinner, it was just a family meal, not even including Richard's parents who were abroad. When we walked in, we saw Tim was already there. He came forward, and his expression was a little unnatural when he saw me with Richard. You two came together? I gave a slight nod. We ran into each other at the university. It was on his way, so he gave me a ride. He said, oh, then looked around behind us. Seeing no one else, he asked Richard curiously, bro, didn't you say you were bringing sister-in-law over? Where is she? I secretly pinched Richard, who just gave a cryptic smile and chose to ignore the question. It was just as well the food was ready, everyone was here, and the butler called us all to the table. During the meal, the old man first asked us younger ones about our recent lives. then chatted with Richard about the company's business. I ate quietly. Suddenly, the old man did a complete 180 and turned to Tim. Tim, this is the first time you've brought a girlfriend to see me. You're not a kid anymore, it's time to think about settling down. I know Nancy's parents, they founded CY Tech, which has a lot of potential. I think you two are a great match. When do you think we can arrange a meeting for the families to get together and talk? The implication was clear. Grandpa George was very happy with Nancy's family and wanted to arrange an engagement for Tim. Nancy was a bit shy, blushing as she looked at Tim. But Tim, after a moment of shock, instinctively looked at me. I picked up a piece of beef, giving him no emotional feedback whatsoever. He lowered his head and mumbled, "Grandpa, it's still too early. Nancy and I want to date a little longer. When the time is right, I'll arrange it." Nancy's smile slowly stiffened, but she went along with him, though her voice sounded a bit forced. "Yes, Grandpa George, we want to date for a while longer." The old man nodded and didn't press further. But the next moment he looked at me. "Alex, I've watched you grow up too. You've always been sensible and steady, with your own ideas about everything, much stronger than Tim. And your personality is the type to stick with a decision once you've made it. Although I can guess the outcome, I still have to ask. This relationship you've chosen, even if it means facing misunderstanding, criticism, and blame from everyone, will you still stand by it? This, after all, concerns your future with the Blake family." The dinner table instantly fell silent. Tim shot his head up to look at me. A hand rested on my thigh and patted it twice, a gesture of reassurance and affirmation. I thought for a moment, took a breath, and squeezed Richard's hand back. Then I turned to Grandpa George and gave him a very solemn nod. "Yes, I'm very sorry for the trouble this has caused you, but I can't choose anyone else." Richard let out a soft laugh, our clasped hands tightening. Tim was also staring at me, his expression incredibly complex. The old man sighed. "In that case, I approve of you and Richard." Suddenly, Tim shot to his feet, the chair scraping against the floor with a deafening screech. His eyes were wide with disbelief as he shouted, "Him and who?" "My brother." Tim's outburst caught everyone by surprise, and the atmosphere instantly became incredibly awkward. He just stood there for more than 10 seconds, the corners of his eyes turning red as he stared at Richard and me. "What's with all the shouting? What a disgrace. When will you ever grow up?" The old man was getting angry, but Tim still didn't move. In the end, Nancy had to pull him down by the corner of his shirt. His fists, resting on the table, were clenched tight, his gaze never leaving me. Richard placed a piece of fish in my bowl. "Eat some fish. See if you like it. If you do, I'll make it for you next time." I dropped all pretense, smiled and said okay, then picked it up and ate it. Tim remained silent with a dark expression on his face, even ignoring Nancy when she tried to talk to him. After dinner, the old man prepared to go upstairs to rest. Richard and I said our goodbyes and left. We hadn't even made it out of the courtyard when Tim chased after us and blocked my path, his chest heaving, looking absolutely furious. He ground his teeth. "Alex, are you that desperate for a man? You couldn't get me, so you went and seduced my brother? Do you have any fucking shame?" The next moment, a sharp punch sent Tim's head snapping to the side. Richard stood in front of me, his voice cold. "Tim, have I been spoiling you too much? You don't even know how to talk like a human being anymore. Apologize." Tim slowly turned his head back, his tongue probing the inside of his bruised cheek, his face grim. "What, did I say something wrong?" I pulled the about to explode Richard back a step, patting his back to signal that I would handle it. I met Tim's bloodshot eyes. "Yes, you were wrong. I never wanted to get you. From the very beginning, the one I've loved is your brother. I've explained to everyone time and time again that I don't like you. I was telling the truth. Do you believe me now?" The color drained from Tim's face. He was stunned for a long moment. But what? I cut him off. "What are you so unhappy about? I've never liked you. Shouldn't you be happy? You kept telling me not to have those kinds of twisted feelings for you, and I don't. Isn't that exactly what you wanted? Your brother and I are in love. It's a normal relationship. What right do you have to question it? Or could it be that you yourself harbor some of those feelings you find so repulsive? I admit my words were harsh, almost cruel, but it was the only way to make everything clear once and for all. Everyone else could see his subconscious feelings, of course, I could too. I just never saw the need to point it out before. My words left Tim speechless, transforming him from a furious madman into a lost and bewildered child. After a long silence, I took Richard's hand. Let's go. Richard wrapped his arm around my waist, straightened his back, and as we walked past Tim, he added, "This brooch I picked out for you looks pretty good on you, too." The city lights blurred past as I rested my head against the car window. Richard reached over and took my hand. "What are you thinking about?" I turned my head to look at him, at his handsome, high-bridged nose. I was just thinking, how did you convince the old man? And why didn't you tell me beforehand? I had expected a tough battle, but he had agreed so calmly. Richard must have done something. You wouldn't have agreed if I'd told you. He held the bottom of the steering wheel with one hand, leaning back relaxedly, while his other hand gently kneaded the joints of my fingers. It wasn't a big deal. I just knelt in front of him for 3 hours and confessed that I couldn't live without you, that I wouldn't marry anyone else. As for continuing the Blake family line, they still have Tim, so it doesn't have to be me. If he didn't agree, I'd have no choice but to quit and elope with you. Can't be helped. I'm just a hopeless romantic. Pinched him. Weren't you afraid of scaring the old man to death? Richard winced and pulled his leg back, then placatingly stroked the back of my hand. I wouldn't. I know my limits. He's in good health. Besides, I had a whole row of doctors waiting outside the door. Nothing could have happened. This guy. I was at a loss for words. Even though he was brushing it off now with a few simple sentences, I knew it must have involved a long, drawn-out argument and negotiation. The scene was probably very ugly, not nearly as easy as he made it sound. I didn't press for details. I just watched him intently, this man who always put me first. A minute later, I deadpanned and swatted away the hand that was creeping up the inside of my thigh, giving it another twist for good measure. Drive properly. You almost ran a red light. After getting home and messing around for a bit, by the time we were cleaned up and in bed, it was almost midnight. I was snuggled in Richard's arms, not quite asleep, when the glow of a phone screen lit up from between the pillows. I answered the call. "Danny? Oh, thank God you finally answered. I thought you were asleep." "Tim's at the bar, drinking himself half to death and mumbling your name. What happened between you two? Did you fight? Can you maybe come pick him up?" As expected. Whenever Tim was upset about something, he liked to go to the bar and get wasted. You should call his girlfriend. It'd be more appropriate for Nancy to go. Dude, you think I didn't try? You have no idea. Nancy was like a different person. She showed up in high heels and heavy makeup, walked up to Tim, slapped him twice, hard, and dumped him on the spot. Then she just turned and walked away. I was just standing there, stunned. Richard let out a muffled laugh and whispered, "Serves him right." Nancy had been at the door and heard our entire conversation with Tim after the dinner. She was a good girl. If Tim was really just using her as a stand-in, then he deserved those 2 slaps. Hey, my clothes. Damn, he puked again. "Alex, can you please come get him? I'm too scrawny to carry him, and if I don't get home soon, my mom's gonna cut off my card. And he's really been saying your name over and over. This is your big chance." Richard clicked his tongue, not bothering to lower his voice. "Is there someone else with you?" "Yeah," I said, poking the clean line of the jaw in front of me. "Richard and I are together." "Oh, that's great. You and Richard can come get his little bro. Danny, we're dating." Now that we were past the hurdle with his grandpa, there was no need to hide it anymore. "Bro, the fuck?" After a thunderous curse, the other end of the line went dead silent. He seemed to be in shock, trying to process this new information. I thought for a moment, asked him to send the address, and then hung up. Richard lifted my chin, his eyes glinting dangerously. "What's this? Planning to go pick up another man in the middle of the night, right in front of your husband?" I shoved my phone screen in his face. "Your brother. Have your family driver go get him." Richard grabbed me for a rough kiss, then smiled and took the phone. I knew my baby wouldn't abandon his husband. He then called the Blake family driver and told him to get Tim home safely and to let him know when it was done. The day after the dinner was the weekend. Richard had a habit of going for a 10-kilometer morning run. After he spent a good 10 minutes kissing and cuddling me, I couldn't get back to sleep. I lazed in bed for half an hour after he left before finally getting up. After washing up, I was about to head downstairs to take out the trash when I saw a disheveled figure squatting by my door. Tim? Tim's body stiffened slightly. He slowly looked up at me. He had dark circles under his eyes, which were bloodshot, and a layer of stubble on his chin. He looked exhausted from a sleepless night. You're really here? He forced a painful-looking smile. I knocked on your door for half an hour, but no one answered. I was wondering if you didn't want to see me, or if you really weren't home. If you weren't, where would you be? I came here, but I didn't dare to knock. I was afraid that if the door opened, it would really be. He trailed off and wiped his face. Alex, the person in the bedroom that day, that was you too, wasn't it? Tim's voice trembled slightly, and his eyes were pleading. He was pleading for me to deny his suspicion. I let out a soft sigh. Yes. For a moment, Tim couldn't speak. He lowered his head, a faint sound escaping his throat. It was hard to tell if it was a self-deprecating laugh or a whimper. After composing himself for a moment, he slowly stood up. Can I come in and sit for a bit? I stepped aside to let Tim in, then poured him a glass of water and sat on the sofa across from him. He still smelled strongly of alcohol, and his shirt was covered in wrinkles. Tim took a sip of water. I thought about it all night yesterday, and I finally figured some things out. I need to apologize to you. He sat up a little straighter. A long time ago, I said it was disgusting that you liked men, and yesterday I said all those horrible things to you. I'm sorry. I was emotional and lost control. The apology was sincere and I smiled. It's okay. I didn't really take it to heart. The person you really need to apologize to is Nancy and all the other girls you've hurt. Some of them genuinely liked you. They weren't just after your money. Tim lowered his head. I know. I will. He was silent for a moment before continuing. Alex, do you remember that time in our sophomore year when we went hiking on that unpaved trail? I fell and broke my leg. There was no signal in the mountains, and you carried me all the way down, step by step. And when I was graduating, I had a sudden high fever at 4 in the morning. You rushed to my house, dragged me out of bed to the hospital, stayed with me while I was on in 4, and waited until my fever broke. You were so good to me, really good. I couldn't understand it last night. If you really had no feelings for me at all, then why would you do all that? Tim looked up carefully, a clear hope suppressed in his eyes. I finished the half cup of tea in my hand. I sighed internally, feeling a bit weary. Tim, on that hiking trip, it was me, you, and Danny. You broke your leg. The only people who could have carried you were me or Danny. But he's so scrawny, he probably would have rolled down the mountain with you. So for safety, the only option was for me to carry you while he acted as a cheerleader-shaped piece of luggage. As for the time you had a fever, you called me first saying you felt sick. I told you to have your driver take you to the hospital, but you refused no matter what. That's why I rushed over. But honestly, if it had been Danny with the fever, I would have done the same thing. I did take extra care of you, but that's because Grandpa George helped my family out with a loan once, and my parents specifically told me to. But I can say with confidence that everything I did was within the boundaries of friendship. I never did anything out of line. Perhaps the only thing out of line was admitting I liked a man with the last name Blake during that game of Truth or Dare. For various reasons, Richard and I didn't go public, and I'm also very sorry for the misunderstanding that caused. I spoke each word carefully, trying to explain as clearly as possible. Tim's mouth trembled slightly. After a long stun, he shook his head and gave a self-deprecating laugh. So the one who was foolishly reading into things all along was me. As he spoke, the front door beeped and opened. Richard's deep, pleasant voice came from the doorway. Honey, I'm home. I bought you crab rangoon from your favorite place. When Richard came in and saw Tim, he raised one eyebrow high. You're here this early to pay your respects to your sister-in-law? I got up, took the bag of food from him, and handed him a clean towel. Wipe off your sweat first. From the moment his brother walked in, Tim had been completely silent. Richard casually ruffled his hair and forehead, then gave me a natural, quick kiss. Eat the rangoon while it's hot. I'm gonna take a quick shower. He went into the bedroom and then the bathroom. I sat back down with the breakfast and, after a moment's hesitation, extended the plastic bag toward Tim. Want one? Tim stared at the bag for a long time without any intention of taking it. So that's a no. Fine, I started eating by myself. I never knew you liked crab rangoon. I swallowed the sweet crab filling. That's because I never told you. Tim's expression turned utterly dejected, seemingly mixed with a hint of loneliness and jealousy. How did you and my brother get together? I finished one, pulled out a napkin, and wiped my mouth. I seduced him. Soaking wet, damsel in distress, that sort of thing. I mean, rescuing a drowning girl and then getting into his car to borrow his clothes. Isn't that basically a wet t-shirt seduction? Tim froze completely, his eyes fixed and unblinking. I waved my hand in front of his face for a good while. Was what I said that shocking? Tim suddenly snapped out of it, wiped his face, and took a deep breath as if he had made a decision. Alex, I regret it. I was blind and foolish. I never saw my own feelings clearly. If I had understood sooner, if I hadn't said those horrible things, would you have? There are no ifs, especially when faced with an established fact. Bro. Richard had finished his shower and came out fully dressed. He sat down next to me, bringing with him the fresh scent of his shower. Tim, I've taught you this before. You're an adult now and a member of the Blake family. You should have dignity and decency in everything you do, except in front of your partner. You've been hungover all night, you haven't cleaned yourself up at all, and you show up at your sister-in-law's place looking like a ghost. This isn't some pity play melodrama, it's just rude. Also, you want to steal my man? Your courage is admirable, but in my eyes, it's ridiculously foolish. Look at the pathetic state you're in. What is there about you for Alex to even glance at? Your hair that looks like a bird's nest? Or your eyes that are so bruised you look homeless? Tim's neck tensed, and he looked like he desperately wanted to argue. But his face just turned red and he couldn't get a single word out. Richard stood up and grabbed his car keys. Now I'm taking you home. First, you're gonna clean yourself up and look like a person. Then you can try talking like one. When Richard gets serious, he's actually quite intimidating, with the kind of authority that only comes from being in charge. Perhaps realizing he was in the wrong, Tim clenched his fists, pursed his lips, and obediently lowered his head and walked to the door. Richard leaned down and, with a complete change of face, pecked me on the cheek with a smile. Be good, baby. Wait for me to come back. Richard wasn't gone for long. By the time he returned, I had watched less than half an hour of my documentary. He took off his jacket, scooped me up to sit face to face on his lap, and buried his head in my chest, nuzzling restlessly for a good while. I grabbed the back of his neck and pulled him up. Stop that, do you want a bald spot? He chuckled and gave me a kiss. You'd love me even with a bald spot. My good looks aren't affected by my hairstyle. Besides, you love me for my noble soul. I gave the back of his head a playful smack and laughed. Get lost. Richard gleefully pulled me into a hug. You know what Tim said in the car? He said he wants to compete with me fairly, that he's going to pursue you. He said if he doesn't at least try, he'll regret it for the rest of his life. Oh, and he also said he doesn't think he's any worse than me. I thought I made myself clear enough. What did you say? His hand slipped under my shirt and squeezed my side. I told him he must have fried his brain drinking last night and suggested he see a doctor. What kind of delusion makes him think he's better than me? Is he competing for the lowest IQ? Trying to steal my partner? Not even in his next life. Richard then scooped me up onto the sofa, pressing down with a shower of soft kisses. My temperature gradually rose, and I melted into his fiery tenderness. As it turned out, Tim wasn't just talking. He really took action, and he was relentless. When I was at work, he'd wait by the academic building holding a different dessert every day. When I wasn't at work, he'd find all sorts of ways to send me gifts, sometimes valuable rare books, other times men's accessories. Naturally, I returned them all. One time, I saw him leaning against a tree, his face black and blue, with what looked like stiletto marks on his cheek. He looked miserable. What happened to you? Get jumped? He scratched his head. I ran into Nancy and her friends. I couldn't outrun them, so anyway, let's not talk about that. I brought you some crab rangoon, wanna try? He pulled a bag out of an insulated pouch, containing broken dumplings, the juice already soaking through. Tim froze. They probably got smashed when I was getting hit just now. Weird, I thought I protected them pretty well. He looked down, checking the insulated bag over and over, looking a bit lost. I was silent for a long time, then my expression turned serious. Tim, what are you trying to accomplish with all this? I don't need the things you sent before, and I don't need a couple of dumplings. He paused. Just friendly concern? I'm not an idiot. Seeing how serious I was, Tim's expression gradually became more solemn too. Though with his bruised face it looked a bit comical. Yes, I like you. I'm pursuing you. Since you like men, why can't it be me? What kind of twisted logic was that? I laughed in exasperation. By that logic, just because I like men, does that mean I have to like every man in the world? And I need to correct one thing. I like men because I like Richard, and he just happens to be a man. Do you understand what I'm saying? Tim was at a loss for words. I remember you once told me not to bother you, or it would be very troubling for you. Have you ever considered that with me being in a relationship, what you're doing is also causing me trouble? Or let me be more blunt. Tim, there is no possibility between us. You're wasting your time spending all this energy on me. I left no room for ambiguity, wanting only to end this absurd farce. Tim's hands gradually fell to his sides, and he said no more. I turned to leave, but I had only taken a few steps when I heard him shout again. Alex, I won't give up on you. I'll make you change your mind. Change my mind about what? Maybe I should just let Richard bury him somewhere. Richard, on the other hand, was completely unbothered by his brother's antics. He had absolute confidence in himself. Except at night, it became his excuse to push his luck. Things like, he went to see you again today, I'm very unhappy, he sent you something again, I'm jealous, or you said 2 sentences to him today, you have to compensate me properly, and so on. He was driving me crazy, both mentally and physically, to the point where I wanted to dig a pit and bury both him and Tim in it. So annoying. Just as the situation with Tim was unresolved, a new storm erupted. The Blake Group's board meeting was approaching, and at this critical juncture, the story about Richard and me suddenly broke. Guided by malicious parties, Richard was portrayed as a debauched playboy who wasted his days on drink and pleasure, tangled up with another man. I knew Tim wasn't behind this, he wasn't stupid enough to use such a clumsy method to stir up trouble. The Blake Group was massive, there were always people with dark intentions who, unable to take Richard down directly, would resort to such crooked tactics. The internet was flooded with negative comments, and the company's reputation plummeted. Bored people always have an endless appetite for this kind of high society gossip. They excitedly dug up all my information, including my real name, job, and personal history. Colleagues messaged me asking if it was true that I was with the Blake Group's CEO. I admitted it freely. Tim also called anxiously, telling me not to worry, that he was arranging to have the trending topics taken down. He hung up in a hurry before I could even say a word. What was the rush? As I expected, 10 minutes later, Richard released a statement. Yes, the person I love is a man. He is brilliant, and it is my honor to be with him. I am proposing to him tonight. Please wish me success. Not only did the topic not get taken down, but a new related hashtag exploded to the top of the charts. The internet was in an uproar, and my phone was blowing up with notifications. To save my eyes, I let Richard know and then turned my phone off. That evening, when Richard came home, I was drying his still dripping hair. Is the impact on the company significant? Richard pulled me into his arms and gave me a couple of kisses. Don't worry, the Blake Group has survived this long because of its products, not its CEO's love life. Besides, I just fell in love with another human being. I haven't broken any rules or laws, so what can happen? This is all just some low-level tricks from those old geezers who want to pull me down. By the way, Did you see the statement I posted? I put the towel aside and turned on the hairdryer for him. I saw it. So, do you agree? I blinked, playing dumb. Agree to what? Richard snatched the hairdryer and turned it off. To get married, of course. I raised an eyebrow, took a step back, and looked him up and down, stroking my chin thoughtfully. This is a major life decision. I need to think about it. Without another word, Richard pulled a ring box from the coat hanging on the chair, took out the ring like a bandit, and slid it onto my finger. Then he roughly pulled me into his arms. No thinking aloud. You have to say yes. You've been mine for a long time anyway, the kind where our ashes get mixed together after we die. A laugh muffled against his chest, filled with a fiery warmth. I hugged him back and whispered softly, "Okay." The day after the incident, Grandpa George held a press conference and gave a 10-minute speech. To put it in simple terms, he basically said, "My grandson is dating Alex. I am happy and I bless them. This is not something to be ashamed of, so whose business is it anyway?" The company has already identified the people who intentionally guided the negative public opinion and has gathered evidence of their corruption, bribery, and other illegal activities. You mess with my grandson, I send you to prison. The paid trolls leading the online attacks went silent at once, and more positive comments began to surface. Did you guys realize Alex is a professor at B University? He did his bachelor's, master's, and PhD at a top school and stayed on as faculty. That's so impressive. It really is true that brilliant people are drawn to each other. Professor Alex is a really good person. 2 years ago, my daughter accidentally fell into a river, and it was Professor Alex who saved her without any regard for his own safety. He's a truly good man. Please stop attacking him. To the person above. I was there. So the person who saved the girl was Alex. Oh my God. Angel Professor Alex, you and Mr. Blake must be happy together. They say the world of the rich is complicated, but for the first time, I really hope these two can be together. I'll be the lock, you two lock it down. In an instant, public opinion was reversed. Sales of the Blake Group's products surged, setting a historical record. Where some rejoiced, others despaired. First, there were those with ulterior motives who tried to seize power through crooked means. They were now being prosecuted for bribery and would be well cared for in a different way for the next 10 years. Second was Tim. It was said that after he found out I had accepted Richard's proposal, he went to a bar and got blackout drunk again, wailing and crying, calling himself a useless piece of trash who couldn't even get a simple trending topic taken down. He was so heartbroken he couldn't even lift his head. After 2 days of being drunk, he sent me a message. "Congratulations. I won't bother you again." I didn't reply. Some things just had to end there. Not long after, Tim told his family he wanted to go abroad to study, saying he didn't want to be a spoiled heir anymore. On the day he left, Richard and I went to see him off. Having not seen him for half a month, he had indeed changed a lot. He seemed much more mature and composed. He didn't say anything, but it was as if he had said everything. Perhaps when he returns from his studies, the Tim of the past will be no more. "Mr. Blake, please don't stand so close. The suit will get wrinkled. Mr. Blake, you're kissing too hard. I can't even see his mouth. Mr. Blake, could you loosen your grip a little? You're making Professor Alex look crooked." After shouting this several times, the photographer lowered his camera with a look of utter despair, as if he wanted to smash it to pieces. It wasn't his fault Richard was being a bit much. Who takes wedding photos like he's a bandit kidnapping a bride, clinging to the person for dear life? At first, the photographer was intimidated by his status and gave gentle, tactful reminders. But no matter how well he adjusted things, the moment he got back behind the camera, Richard would be clinging to me again. Finally, the photographer started yelling out of frustration, and now he looked like he wanted to find a rope and hang himself on the spot. I suggested we take a break. Richard leaned in, looking wronged. "Honey," he yelled at me. I poked him in the forehead with one finger, pushing him away. "Who acts like you? Can you please act normal?" "I am being normal. Isn't this how we usually hug and kiss? But this is for a photo shoot." "What's wrong with a photo shoot? Isn't it supposed to be realistic?" "No, it's supposed to be aesthetic." Seeing my disdainful look, Richard turned away and pouted. So you're just tired of me. Tired of how much I love you, how I can't control myself when I'm near you. Tired of me not caring about the occasion, wanting to kiss and hug you whenever I see you. Tired of me. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed his tie, pulled him in, and shut his rambling mouth with my own. The moment our lips touched, the photographer pressed the shutter button, finally letting out a satisfied sound of praise. Yes, that's it. That's the feeling. The aloof professor and his possessive, domineering lover. Nice. Great shot. Richard beckoned with his hand. Here, let me see that. The photographer trotted over excitedly. Here, take a look. Professor Alex's assertive move, your shy and stunned expression. Paired with this lighting, it's simply, hey, don't delete it. You can't delete it. The photographer clutched his camera and scrambled away. Richard chased after him. What the hell kind of picture did you take? It can't be kept. Someone, get that piece of junk camera from him. I watched the two of them with a smile as sunlight streamed in through the floor to ceiling windows. Things were great right now, but the future would be even better.